Welcome back to an all new episode of the Consider the Lilies podcast. I'm Megan Fevier.
And I'm Brooklyn Whitmer.
And we're so stoked to be doing these episodes, just the two of us.
Yeah. It's been really fun, like, trying this out for the summer.
Yeah.
Summer fun.
Summer fun. I almost did the song from Grease, Summer Lovin', but then I was like, no.
It's just too much.
It's too much.
But no, it's been really fun. I'm really excited that we're having these conversations. I do think that they're like, a lot of times, like, they're so like personable and vulnerable, and I think that's honestly probably the best place to be, and especially with the topic we're doing today, which is singleness.
Woo!
No, but yeah, like, seriously, it's one of those topics that sometimes, like, even for myself, I'm like,
cringeworthy.
Well, cringeworthy, and then also, like, it's just, it's so interesting walking that out. In different ways and in different environments, I guess you could say. But I think it's going to be good to talk about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were kind of debating, like, do we talk about this on the podcast? Because, like, Brooklyn and I, like, we're both single, if you did not know. And we're like, do we talk about this on the podcast? How do we lean into both single women, dating women, married, engaged, like, all the seasons, when we haven't been in, the engaged season, in the married season? We've seen the dating season, but it hasn't been, like, super fruitful for either one of us.
Yeah.
So how do we talk about that? But then we're like, let's just
be vulnerable in our journey.
Yeah, be vulnerable in our journey.
That's what we're doing right now.
This is what we're doing right now. Yeah. Being vulnerable.
Yeah. And it almost like that kind of topic is like, wow. But no, it's I'm glad, because I think so many people do speak into it, but sincerely, like, I think we need to take it seriously, like how we walk it out as we're single and into the dating and all of that, because it, like, what we're doing today, regardless if you're single, married, or engaged, like, it really does matter, because, like, your choices impact those around you, those that you're always interacting with, your family, friends, and eventually one day maybe a spouse. So it really does matter what you're inputting into your life, where you're at. So that's kind of like our thing right now. Like, as Megan said, we're both single. And it's just like figuring that out, navigating, like, how are we living day to day. And I think also too, like, you really have that time to, like, actually see your life, like, laid out, I guess, because there's that time to actually think about it and, like, your choices. And so it's so interesting to, like, have that and then hopefully continue to be refined and just more Christ-like.
And I think singleness now, especially in church and Christian culture, it's like, if you're single, like, Gigi in the church is trying to set you up with somebody, and that's so sweet. We love our Gigis. We love the Gigis in the church, but sometimes it's just not the right match. But I think, especially in Christian culture, it's like a stigma that if you're not married young, like, there is something wrong with not being married young, not having the family young. And Brooklyn and I won't say our ages, but we are both, like, mid-20s. And at times, like, we've seen our friends, like, and family members both all get married, all go through, like, the dating phase, married phase, and now, like, have kids. And it's very interesting to watch that lived out and get the idea of, like, oh, like, I'm mid-20s. Should I have all of this right now? But yet we're here focused on career. So it's very different.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing either.
No.
Like, I think what's so cool is being able, like, we were talking about this too, like, how it's so cool to see our friends and family have that special someone and have those families. But, and, like, as we are walking our different seasons, it's a different dynamic. It's not the same as it once was before, and that's okay. I think what's special is us encouraging one another in those seasons, as it is different, but loving each other through whatever we're walking into. And it's special when you take time to encourage someone, like I know with like my friends, they encourage me in my life, and I want to do the same, even if we're not walking like the same path right now. You can still love on them because we're all humans. We all are dealing with kind of like the same like emotional things going on in our lives, but just maybe a different dynamic. But we still need encouragement. We still need community, regardless of where we're at in life and our, status of relationship. So I think that's something I've been really noticing, like, don't pull away because of like our different maybe journeys right now.
Yeah.
But actually lean in, because sincerely, like, I feel like we're both continuing to learn and grow. It's not just because you reach this one goal, that doesn't mean that you're falling behind, or that means you're somewhere else in a different part of life. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ, and we need each other even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so good. And I think so much like we have those different goals. And I know when I was growing up, I'm like, oh, like I'm going to be married by 21. Like I'm going to have all of these different things. And when those goals don't happen, like we set those goals for our lives, and then when they don't happen, we're like, oh no, like what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
But that's really not the idea, like God has his story, like his perfect story laid out. So whatever you're walking through right now, like it's a part of God's plan for your life, and you're going to make it through that season. And I think there's such a joy in the single season. There's also like times of sadness too. Like,
right.
Like Brooklyn can relate, like you go through different seasons where you're like, oh man, like it would be really nice to have like somebody with me for like this or that.
Right.
But there's such a joy and a freedom, like you can do different things that you can't do when you have a spouse. Like, for instance, like Brooklyn and I can come and hang out with each other whenever we want to. But yeah, there's such a joy.
Yeah. But no, like we can pursue, and like there is a moment where in our season of singleness, we can have like the freedom, like you were talking about, to do different things than we would in a relationship. But I think what's so cool about being in a relationship is it's also probably very refining, as I've seen in examples of our own parents, in our own friends' relationships. It's a refining thing. It's not like something that's perfect. And I think sometimes we as single women have viewed, hey, I'm still single, but we still view it as like, it's the most epic thing you can ever think of. And I think there is a beautiful love to your relationship, but I think we have to be so focused on our true relationship with Christ as our number one. And then while we seek him, that's where like, I love this too, where I hope that like for me, I just think about this, like I'm so lost in God that the person that I end up with will also have the Lord and see the love that I have for the Lord and want that same, because he has that same connection, and that we mutually fall for each other because of the goodness of the Father. And I think that's something so pure, because in that you can rest in knowing that like that person is not going to look to me for all the answers. They're not going to look to me to be the end all be all for every situation, because that will tear you down. That will make, because you are not we're not super women. We're not gonna do that. So,
or Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Thank you. We're not Wonder Woman. So it is sincerely like when I think about that, because I'm like, man, like, because there is times where it gets hard, and so like, where do you fall back on? You have to fall back on God first, and then of course continue to cultivate the relationship. Don't let it die off. And I heard a lot of couples talk about too, like dating each other even in marriage. Like
that's good.
That has to be cultivated too.
That's really good. Even
if you are married. And it's like seeing that and hearing that, it's like, okay, so it's never just a end all be all. It's like continually loving the Lord and continually loving each other through it all. That's unconditional love.
Wow. That's really good.
Yeah.
And to go off of that, I think too, like oftentimes you feel like, I know as a woman, sometimes I feel like I always have to be the strong one. I always have to have it together.
Yeah.
And I think so many times in relationship, there's that like sense of, like, I don't know, like we don't know, like people that are listening, what side you are viewing a relationship from. We don't know if you are single. We don't know if you're dating, engaged, married. If you have just come out of a very bad experience with either one of these situations, dating, married, single, or, well, you wouldn't have had a bad single relationship. If you are living your life with Jesus, it's not bad.
Well, it's not going to be easy, but it's
worth it.
Yeah. Amen. Yes.
But, you know, I think to speak into what you were just saying, like so many times we feel like we have to be like the strong individual and that we can never like break it down. And when you get into that like marriage union with your spouse, there has to be, if Christ is at the center of that, you can have those moments where you can be like, hey, like I just can't do it today. And you can have those raw moments with your spouse because Christ is the center. And you can be like, you know, I need to depend on you because we're now one. And when Christ is there, you guys can both share in that burden of whatever you're going through. And I think like being single, I look at different couples relationships now, like people that I trust, like mentors, my family. And I'm like, you know, I see where Christ was the center of their marriage or their relationship. And when times got tough, you know, like if one person broke, it broke the other person's heart, and they both leaned on each other. I'm talking with my hands on right now.
No, I do too. I do too.
And they both leaned on each other. But with Christ at the center, it didn't break the bond that they had created. I think that's just so important.
Yeah. And like, because like, I mean, you hear so many stories of different things that happen in life, and life is hard. There's so much pain and hurt in our world. Yeah. So like you said, like knowing that Christ is the firm foundation of your home, like that can carry you through so much. Yeah. And I'm so thankful that he even like, it's not about like for us, like we don't have to just live a half life as a single person. Like we can completely like continually walk with Jesus, and he leads us. And that's throughout our entire lives. That is not something that will change. And I think that's so beautiful about just walking into a marriage covenant, like knowing that like my relationship with God has always been there. And so that's number one. And then knowing that like, Lord willing, that spouse will be right there with me too. And we get to walk this life together for the Lord. And we get to hopefully, Lord willing, like make it to where our callings intertwine. And I think that's really the goal, you know, of course, in marriage, to have like the sincerity of like, this is where God's leading us together. Because you really do need that. Yeah. You really do. So.
And I mean, like, shout out to like the women right now that are older and single. Like, I think one of the people that I really admire is Lisa Harper. I think she's done a really good job of faithfully walking out her singleness. And I didn't plan on bringing her up, but I'm going to talk about, she speaks at my church so many times here in Nashville, and she's a single lady. She's been a single lady for her whole life. I mean, like, she's obviously, when you're single, you do date, like, you know, like you get asked out on the occasional date, you talk to the occasional guy, but she's been single her whole life. She adopted a sweet little girl from Haiti, but the one Sunday when she preached at our church, she was like, hey, like for my 50th birthday, I was like, well, I don't have a man, so I'm going to get myself a motorcycle and I'm just going to go live out my life. And so she rides her little bike around here in Nashville, on some of the back roads. But I just think that's like so empowering, not to get off on a side note, but like to say, hey, like I'm still going to boldly pursue my calling no matter what age of my singleness. Like I'm going to go out and do the things, like the bucket list dreams that I have. I'm going to go out and continue to pursue my calling. Like she wanted to have a child, and she made that happen through adoption. And so like whatever age that you're at and you're single and you're like, man, like I still have this like gnawing in my heart, this desire, like you can still make those things happen if they are good and they're from God.
Yeah. And the girl that I've been thinking of a lot is like Maddie Pruitt. A lot of people know who she is, but like she walked through a lot of things publicly, like with The Bachelor, for example. But she stood strong in her beliefs and did it in such sincerity. And as she continued walking through her life, she was very vulnerable about different things. And she now is married, like, to a man who loves the Lord, he's a preacher, and she's now, like, supporting him. But I think seeing that example of, like, her being single, being honest about it and not afraid of that conversation, and then walking into a relationship that was God honoring is, like, beautiful. Because, like, I know for me, like, in this part of my life, being single, it's almost, like, vulnerable to share, like, those places, because it's like, it's your walk, and it's kind of like a spot where there, of course, there's other singles, but it just, like, it feels like, oh my goodness, it's very there's more depth to it, I think, than just, like, an overlay of I'm single. But I do think that if we're vulnerable and we're in a place where God's, like, wanting us to share, like, for example, today, like, I think it's so important to allow those conversations, because we can't walk this life alone, and we cannot, like, allow ourselves to be in a bubble. And for me, it's easy to fall into that, to be like that person, to be like, this is like, to be in a safe spot. But it's like, what, if God's, like, leading this and he's showing me the way to share, and this is one of those opportunities, and this is the place to do it, because we want to be an encouragement. We want to know, like, to people to know that it's not just them. You're not alone. It's not just you, but we have Jesus, and we have his love and his light. And so we can just continue to lean into exactly what he has for us today. We don't have to worry about it, like, tomorrow or from yesterday and think about the past. We just have to remember, like, okay, I know what the Lord did in my life before, but I can trust him now because I've seen that in my life. And I don't have to worry about the future because he already has that. Yeah. And I can't hold that in my heart and mind. I can't live that fear and not live a full life. So I have to let that go too. So right now, I know who Jesus is to me, and he's shown me that, and he continually does. And I think that's just powerful, just living presently and living for today.
I love that, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I think what you said, you made a really good point there, where you were like, sometimes it's hard for us as single people to be vulnerable about our singleness, because so often, and I mean, I've gotten it, I'm sure you've gotten it too, you walk into a room and automatically people are like, so, especially if it's people like, if it can be like at church, it can be family event, it can even be like a social work situation, right? And you walk into that room and, like, the conversations are going really well, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, are you seeing anyone? Oh, you're single. I have somebody that I can set. You get the setup question, and then you're like, you don't want to be rude, but then you're like, I'm not really interested. Like, when you say that you're content in your singleness, people don't know what that means. And to me, I'm just like, I'm just content because I feel like God has been so good in this season that I'm walking in. Like, yes, like, this season has had trials, and I mean, we can talk about some of the trials later on that we've both had, but, like, God has just made it that, like, he's built a community around, myself and around Brooklyn, and he's given us really strong families, a great calling to pursue. And it's like, I'm just content, and, like, if that person comes along, great, but I don't need to go. There's nothing against people that have met online. Nothing against that. I don't have anything against you. Props to you. But I don't need to go, like, on an internet website to find the man of my dreams when I truly believe that it's going to be a God-ordained moment.
Yeah. And it's cool that you have, like, that, like, knowing in your heart that that's where, like, God's like, okay, like, it's meant for you when it's meant for you. And just, I think I'm going to speak to the fact of you, like, saying when people come up to you and be like, you should go out with this person. That's a tough thing to play out, because it's hard, because you want to maybe give stuff a shot. I think sometimes for me, I've always kind of been more closed off to stuff like that, because I think, I don't know, maybe just I'm afraid of what could be. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, I feel like God just gives you that nudging of, like, when it's time. And I think he will. But I'm also trying to have that fine balance of being, like, open to the opportunity of, like, not being too quick to close the door. Yeah. Because it's easy to. of course, have prayer and it's a lot of times stepping in faith is a big deal. And I think that's one of the things we need to do. But when you know, and if things are supposed to happen, they will. But it's okay to say no. Like you said, like, hey, I'm not feeling it, whatever. And that's fine. But then also, like, I'm trying to also be like a little more open to it compared to how it used to be. Because I think it's easy to be like, it's just a lot. But, if you trust the person and you feel like, well, maybe I should just give it a shot. It's maybe not a bad idea. So it's just one of those things you really have to like discern and pray about. But yeah, I know what you mean with contentment. I feel like I've been really content in my life because I feel like God's called me to different things like you have. And it's just cool to walk that out. And then, like I said, Lord willing, we don't really know the day, the place, the time. But when that does happen, like I believe, in my heart that there's someone out there for me. And I'm like, I'm just going to be obedient in where I'm at. And just, be that person that is consistent and continually, like I said before, like just be able to, like, whatever God has me for today is what I'm going to walk out. And so you just don't know. And the most unlikeliest places you can meet somebody,
Yeah. Coffee shop.
Walmart.
Oh,
that would be cool.
That would be really cool.
I love coffee shops.
Listen, if I was sitting in a coffee shop and like somebody low-key.
Okay.
When I was younger, this is a side note.
Okay.
When I was younger, I don't know if anybody watched High School Musical.
I did.
But the third one, when Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens went up on the rooftop and danced.
Oh, that was sweet.
To me, that gave me unrealistic expectations that I was going to go up on my high school rooftop and dance with like the most beautiful man in school. That never happened for me, okay? Never happened.
Yeah.
But
that's,
I'm still hoping that maybe in my occupation that I could meet the most beautiful person.
Okay.
In my eyes. Like, I don't care if the world doesn't think they're the world.
I think what it is they have a beautiful soul.
Yes.
I'm serious.
Oh, like the Jesse McCartney song. I don't want another pretty
This just got
face.
really wild. No, but sincerely, like, I sincerely, like, I think I've actually, I don't know if you've done this before, I'm just going to be honest. People have said over the years, like, to write a list. And I did.
Yes, I
actually did. But you know what? I think that as you get older, it just changes. And you actually see it's about character.
Yeah.
I mean, you honestly want to be attracted to them, but it is about character. Like, legit. You're like,
it's about character.
I really like this person. Mm-hmm. Like, sincerely, a really nice, like, someone that I want to, like, hang out with more and more.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that like shift. Mm-hmm. And I like that's like something that we kind of learned over the years.
Yeah.
Because I think like, it's like, okay, like, cause younger me had been like, oh,
yeah,
wonderful, being swept off my feet. And now I'm like, of course I'm gonna be like, that would be great. But like, you want it to be like, oh, this is like real, like this, like we are, connecting in ways that like, I could just talk to them and I feel like we would just get along and
they could be like your best friend.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
You would be doing life with your best friend.
Exactly.
Every day.
Now that would be a gift.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Now, but the Zac Efron situation with like dancing up on the rooftop.
Whoa.
I mean, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
It sincerely is.
Just like one time though in life, like if Zac Efron was doing like a win it
I don't think he's
rooftop
going to.
thing.
I just don't think so.
I would enter. Okay. Anyway, back on track though. No, so I did back to the list thing. Mm-hmm. When I was younger. So when the movie War Room came out, I turned my childhood bedroom closet into like my war room. And
I love that.
Preference, the closet, like it was like one of those accordion closets. So like it really wasn't like one that you sat in. Like you sat, like I just would go behind the closet door and I would shimmy.
Oh, that's sweet though.
And like put the things. But I put a list for like qualities that I wanted in my like future spouse.
Yeah.
And the last time I was home to visit my family, I looked at that list and it was funny because I know my mind has shifted from like different situations and different scenarios that I've been in. And I'm like, man, before I was like, oh yes, if he had like on the list, it literally says like dark hair, dark eyes,
okay, yeah,
like, kind heart. Yeah. and like different
Yes.
surface things. And now like in my mind, like on a new list that I've been like praying over and just seeking God over, especially at the start of this year. I spent the first 21 days of this year. I prayed over multiple things, but one of the things was my future spouse, and I wrote him a note every day for the first 21 days of the year that I want to give to him on my wedding day. So if you are listening, this is for you, honey.
I love that.
Yes. So,
I love that because, you know, what's funny? Like, I feel like I've had a friend also, like, kind of write some letters and stuff. I can't remember how it all played out, but she showed him eventually, and I think it means a lot. I think, like, that intentional, like, you don't know the person, but it's just, like, speaking life over them. And, like, giving them, like, this is my hope, you know, and like, I'm so excited for what we have in store with God, like as the center. Yeah. Like that kind of intentionality is just like so sweet. And I think someone like that special someone would really appreciate that. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it makes me think about for myself, like maybe I should like,
well, so in each note, like, and I've started to do it again over the summer because I'm like, you know, I want to really get back to that grounded sense of like, hey, like I want to get back to that belief, like there is somebody, because I think it's so hard for us as single people to lose heart that like there is somebody out there for us. Mm-hmm. So I've started to redo it. So get ready, he gonna get more than 21 notes.
I love it.
But on those 21 days, I wrote a specific prayer that I prayed for him. Like I prayed like, hey, like I pray that, you know, our marriage is built on, you know, the foundation of Christ. Or today I prayed that this was a situation that I walked through in my job, and I just pray that we can love people well and different things, like little things. But I'm like, I just hope they make a difference. And the last one, I remember it was January 21st, and I wrote it. I have no idea why I'm sharing this, but I just hope,
sweet. I think it's sweet.
I hope it makes a difference in someone's life. And the last one I wrote, you'll probably get this on your wedding day. And, you know, I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. And I remember when I was writing it, I was like sobbing. I'm like,
Megan,
oh my goodness.
That is so sincere. I really love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And I love that because it's like the hope of the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really special. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It really does make me like excited. I
don't know why I just shared
I honestly am like, well, maybe I should do that too now. No, but sincerely, it's cool because I think some people actually have done that too. And I think it's special that when you get to deliver those on the day or of the wedding day or whatever, I think that's meaningful. But I don't know how much time we have left currently. But anyways, you can block that out too when I say that. So I guess,
is there any other things, Brooklyn, that you would like to share on?
I think
dating,
we've covered a lot. It was very vulnerable conversation. I like this because I think this will speak to. I mean, I hope it speaks to you as the listener. I know for me, it's really encouraging when people are honest about just like their life. And so, yeah, I'm just excited for the future. I'm excited to see what God does in both of us, in both of our lives. And at the end of the day, like, it's not about like the status of where you're at in life in relationships. It's about who you are being today for Christ. Like, how are you living your life for Him? And He will lead you exactly to where you're supposed to be and how your life is supposed to be lined up. Because many are the plans in the person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. That's Proverbs 19:21, and I love that verse, and it's true.
Preach it.
We have so many plans, but the Lord's purpose prevails. So, yeah. So we just got to keep trusting. Keep trusting. Thank you for listening.
Yes.